In this video, we're going to go on a bit of an adventure and see if we can connect the dots between mobility, self-actualization, and quite possibly the key to everything you want. No small feat, right? So in order to begin this journey, we might want to go through a couple of key distinctions and definitions to help make sense of things along the way, and make sure you and I are playing the same game here. So by mobility, what I mean is the range of motion that you can actively control in any given joint. See, very often what we do is we confuse mobility with flexibility. We confuse our passive range of motion and our active range of motion. Essentially, we confuse the movements we could make with the movements we can make. And to demonstrate that, I might give you a little example. In terms of flexibility of, say, my hip joints, low back, all of that kind of stuff, this is about my passive range of motion, right? This is my flexibility in terms of trying to bring my chest toward my leg. That's the movement that I could make. Now, mobility is a whole other story. This is the movement that I can make. As you can see, there's a big gap in terms of my mobility compared with my flexibility. So what the hell does that have to do with self-actualization? Well, again, we're dealing with a gap, right? We're dealing with a gap between who you could be and who you are. What we're talking about in each of these scenarios, right, is your potential for life, for engaging with the world. I mean, fundamentally, movement is how you engage with the world, whether it's through speech, moving your tongue, your jaw, your lips, moving through the diaphragm, your lungs, and your torso, whether it's through going on a hike, actually moving your body through a landscape around you. Movement is a necessary condition for life. Like, it's a thing that cannot be separated from life. Every living organism needs some form of movement in order to survive. Maybe it goes without saying, but we can make it explicit that the more you are able to move, like the more of yourself that you are able to mobilize, the more fully you can engage with the world around you, the more you can live. So that's where this gap gets to be really important, because this is the gap that is essentially the deficit of your potential to live to the fullest. Whether, again, that's through moving your body or through being the version of yourself that you could be. So how do we bridge that gap? This, I think, is maybe where the key to everything comes into play, right? See, we notice this gap, not when things are going well, but we notice it when things are going poorly. We notice a gap between our flexibility and our mobility when we feel tension, when we feel pain, when we feel just this physical ache within ourselves. Or when we think back to what we used to be, or we look at someone moving beautifully online and we say, shit, I wish I could do that. So we feel this gap when it's uncomfortable. We feel this gap when it's frustrating, right? And that frustration is very important. We'll dip into that a little bit more later. Similarly, we get aware of the gap in terms of our self-actualization when it's frustrating. When things are going smoothly, we tend to tune out. We don't have any conscious awareness of it there, because fundamentally, conscious awareness is there to bring attention to gaps. See, consciousness is one of those things that bubbles up to help you eliminate its cause for existing. Interesting existential phenomenon there. So you don't pay attention to things unless they need resolving, right? Like, you don't think about the bills you have to pay unless you're strapped for cash on the bills you have to pay. Or you don't think about maybe your shoulder unless it hurts, unless it aches, unless it's tense. We only scratch when there's an itch. right? That's another way of thinking of it. So we're only aware of this gap when it's painfully obvious there's room for improvement. We're aware of the gap between who we are and who we could be when we're not making enough money to make ends meet. Or when we think to ourselves, oh, I could have said this, or I should have said that, or I really ought to be doing XYZ. I ought to start that business. I ought to donate my time to charity, whatever the case may be. It's an uncomfortable feeling. It's an existential itch that needs some scratching. And again, it's frustrating. And that frustration is key. That frustration is what brings that gap to life and puts it right in your face that there's a deficit, that there's a deficit in your range of motion, that there's a gap, again, between who you are and who you could be. So the way we bridge that gap is by leaning into that frustration, by amplifying it, by making that tension a little more tense. Now, if I can get poetic for a second, there's a reason why just about every culture on Earth has some version of like the hero myth, right? There's some big dragon in need of slaying, or some monster, like some Grendel that has come and like sacked the kingdom and taken all this. There's some external force that has revealed a gap. Some external force that calls upon that society, that whomever, that hero, to marshal some untapped reserve within themselves. And the way that they slay that dragon, the way that they scratch that existential itch, is by bringing all of themselves to that fight, to that task. They marshal whatever resources they can, internally or externally, to go do what needs to be done. That's exactly what you need to tap into as well. See, the reason why you aren't what you could be, the reason why you can't make all of the movements that you could make, is because you're not able to utilize all of yourself. In order to do those things, in order to bridge that gap, you're going to need to tap the untapped wells within your very being. And I mean that physically, and also in a bit of a poetic, metaphorical sense, right? But let's zoom in and look at maybe the physical manifestation of that. If you're unable to move throughout the range of your flexibility, essentially what that boils down to is a break within your nervous system. There's a lack of your ability to recruit the motor units necessary to contract that tissue, to bring that joint toward its passive range. That's the fundamental physical truth when it comes to mobility and flexibility. Similarly, when you think about who you could be, this path of self-actualization, you could be that person if you could marshal all of yourself, if you could circle the wagons and bring everything you've got to whatever task it is at hand. But perpetually you're distracted by other things. Your attention is pulled in 10,000 different directions. You've got these parasitic tensions, to quote somatic educator Moshe Feldenkrais. You've got these distractions sucking your energy and attention and focus away from the task at hand. See, I could lift my leg much further if I could bring all of myself to the task of lifting. And a simple way to do that might be to physically engage more of myself. Physically squeeze, brace, irradiate tension through my body to contract even more. Or, going back to that dragon analogy, right? I could make that task more frustrating. I could put a heavy weight on top of my ankle and then try again with everything I've got to lift that. And what I'll find, after I've introduced a bit of external load, after I've brought in a dragon of sorts in terms of like a bumper plate or a sandbag, whatever the case may be, what I'll find is that I can lift that limb much further. Because, simply, it feels relatively easy to do that without an extra 45 pounds on there, right? But that 45 pounds that we've added to the leg makes it necessary, essentially, for your nervous system to recruit more motor units, to bring, literally, physically, more of yourself to that task. So again, let's circle back to that idea of the key to everything you want. What you need to do is A, figure out what the hell you want. B, figure out where you are now relative to that. C, really tune into how frustrating that gap is. I mean, what a pain in the ass kind of hell that is to have that huge discrepancy between who you are and who you could be. And then lean into that frustration, exacerbate that tension, let yourself soak in it until you are forced by necessity to bring more of yourself to whatever it is that needs to be done. See, frustration really is the key here. It's a gift. Frustration is what forces us to mobilize more of ourselves to accomplish the task at hand. It forces us to engage in new ways, to bring, again, more of ourselves, to try novel solutions. Like, frustration forces us to get creative. That's the fundamental growth impulse in the human animal, right? You can think of it this way. It's damn frustrating for an infant to be rolling around on its back and just see this whole world around it that it wants to engage with. It is pulled to engage with, and yet it can't. Unless it learns, unless it mobilizes more of itself, unless it learns how to use core musculature to support itself, unless it learns how to use its skeletal system to push into the ground, to yield into it, and to reach out into the world. It's damn frustrating unless you learn how to bring all of yourself to the table. And the only way you learn how to do that is by soaking in that frustration. Essentially, what you need to do is find the biggest dragon you can slay and go slay it. And then rest and recoup and look around and maybe soak in how good it feels for having gone and slayed that thing, right? Soak in how good it feels to have a few degrees more range of motion in your hip. Soak in how good it feels to have finally gotten that email that you needed to write off your plate, or to have that, confronting conversation that you've been putting off for months or years or longer. You're only ever frustrated when there's an unresolved situation. There's only ever tension when there's a gap between what is and what could be. And when you come up against that gap, when that frustration and that tension, when they make themselves kind of apparent to your conscious awareness, that's when you need to lean in. That's when you need to look within yourself and in the world around you for untapped resources. That's when you need to bring everything you have available, again, within yourself and in the external world around you. We need to bring all of that to that task. Because you aren't just what's underneath your skin. You aren't just the flesh of yourself. You're you plus the people in your life. You're you plus the environment that you spend your time in. And I know for a fact you are not making the most of all of that. You are not making the most of what you have available within yourself. You are not fully utilizing the resources that you have available in the world around you. The people, the places, and spaces you spend your time with. If you could use all of that, if you could let yourself use all of that, you would be amazed it's possible. But it's terrifying, right? Because fundamentally what it means is letting go of you as you know yourself now. It means letting go of this little manifestation of you in relation to the rest of the world around you. It means letting go of all of those stories you've told yourself about the way things are, about how you are physically, about how you are in relationships, about how you are in your life. You've got to let go of that. This even ties into some of the rules of improvisation. First rule is notice more. Like, really tune in within yourself. Tune in the world around you, to what's going on, to what is. Second rule is let go. Let go of your expectations. Let go of the way things should be or ought to be. Let go of the distractions that are sucking your time and energy and focus. Let go of the tension that you've accumulated over months and years and decades. Let go and give yourself into those supports around you. Let go and trust yourself internally to make this change. And that's the third rule, is use everything. Use everything within yourself, everything around yourself. Use everything in order to turn what is into what could be. Use everything in order to bridge the gap between what movements you can do and what movements you could do. Use everything to bridge the gap between who you are and who you could be. So, that feels like enough for now. But I'm curious, after watching this, what kind of ideas and what kind of questions, what kind of things are bubbling up for you as you hear all of this. So drop me a little note in the comments, underneath this or next to this or wherever it's going to be. I would love to hear what you think of all this. I'd love to hear how I can support you along the way. So drop me a note in the comments, and I look forward to keeping the conversation going.